I remember the sound of the monitor. That slow, rhythmic beeping. I remember voices, some muffled, some clear. And I remember her. Hannah. My wife. She was sitting beside me, holding my hand, stroking it gently like she used to when we were first married. I couldn't move, couldn't open my eyes, but I was there. Listening. Feeling everything. My body was a shell, but my mind was wide awake. It started the third day after the accident. That's when I realized I was conscious. Locked in, the doctors called it later. I couldn't respond, but I could hear every word. At first, I thought it was a miracle. A chance to stay connected, to be aware, to know what was happening. But that feeling didn't last long. The first few days, she was perfect. She read to me, told me about the house, the dog, the garden. She cried sometimes. I wanted to reach out, tell her I was still here, still with her. But I couldn't. I was trapped inside my own head. Then, things changed. She stopped coming every day. The visits got shorter. Her voice sounded distant. Distracted. One night, she didn't show up at all. And the next day, she came in, sat down, and said, "Ethan, I'm so sorry I wasn't here yesterday. I just needed a break." A break. From me. Her husband, broken in a hospital bed. I tried not to let it sink in. I tried to understand. It was hard. She was young. Beautiful. And I was, well, I wasn't much anymore. I must have looked awful. Tubes everywhere. Pale. Gaunt. I couldn't blame her for needing space. But then, one night, I heard something that burned itself into my soul. The door creaked open quietly. Not like usual. Not with the confidence of a wife visiting her husband. But like a secret. Like a shadow slipping through the night. I heard whispers. A man's voice. Deep. Laughing softly. Then her voice. Familiar, but different. Flirtatious. Lighter. I felt her hand on mine, briefly. Then it was gone. She giggled. Giggled. Like a teenager on a date. "He doesn't even know we're here," she whispered. "He can't hear a thing." The man chuckled. "Still feels weird, though." She laughed again. "Don't be silly. He's basically dead." Basically dead. That phrase haunted me. I wanted to scream. To move. To cry. But all I could do was lie there while she cheated on me. In my hospital room. Right next to me. She kissed him. I could hear it. Wet. Intimate. She moaned softly. And I lay there, helpless, while the woman I loved betrayed me completely. They didn't stay long. 15 minutes, maybe. Then I heard the door shut, and silence returned. But inside me, nothing was silent. Everything screamed. The next day, she came in alone. Sat by my side. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said, as if nothing had happened. "The doctors say there's still no change. But I believe in you." She kissed my forehead. The same lips that kissed him. I wanted to vomit. But I couldn't. I could only endure. The weeks dragged on. She came less and less. And when she did, she was colder. Detached. I listened to every word she said, every conversation with nurses and doctors. She never mentioned the other man. Not once. But sometimes she took phone calls while in the room. Whispered things like, "Last night was amazing," or "I can't wait to see you again." Always while holding my hand, like she was still the grieving wife. The devoted partner. But it was all a lie. And I began to wonder, what if I didn't wake up? What if this was it for me? A lifetime of awareness with no way to speak, no way to fight back. I couldn't let that happen. I had to find a way out. To heal. To return. Not just for me. But for justice. One afternoon, a nurse came in. Her name was Kayla. Young, kind, quiet. But she was different. Gentle. And observant. I started trying to blink. Anything. A twitch. A sign. Days went by. Then finally, one day, I felt something shift. My finger. It moved. Just barely. But it moved. Kayla noticed. Wait, did he just, she whispered. She called for the doctor. They tested me. Stimuli. Light. Touch. Eventually, I blinked. Once for yes. Twice for no. It was crude, but it was communication. The moment I had been praying for. They began rehab. Physical therapy. Slowly. Excruciatingly slowly. But progress came. And Hannah? She didn't visit once during that time. Not a single call. Not a card. Nothing. She had moved on. I had become a burden she no longer wanted to carry. The doctors encouraged me. You're strong, they said. You're a miracle. But I wasn't thinking about survival anymore. I was thinking about revenge. As I regained speech, I asked for a lawyer. My brother, Tom, handled the details. Quietly. Carefully. We began gathering evidence. The hospital had cameras. Logs. Visitor records. I remembered the night she brought him. The exact date. The time. Tom got the footage. It wasn't hard. There they were. Walking in. Holding hands. Laughing. And then disappearing into my room. We had proof. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted her to know that I knew. I wanted her to see the man she thought was gone rise back from the ashes. I waited until I could walk again. It took months. Endless therapy. Pain. Frustration. But every step I took, I thought of her voice saying, "He's basically dead." Every weight I lifted, I pictured her kissing that stranger. And I kept going. Until I was ready. The day I was discharged, I didn't tell her. No one did. I went home with Tom. He'd kept my house in order, paid the bills, fed my dog. He was the only one who never gave up on me. The house felt different. Colder. I walked through the room slowly, touching the furniture, the photos, the places where life used to happen. Our wedding picture was gone from the mantel. In its place, a vase of fake flowers. She'd erased me already. Tom handed me the envelope. "Here's everything," he said. "Footage, dates, visitor logs, even some social media stuff. She's not being subtle, Ethan. They go to the same places you used to take her. It's all there." I nodded. I didn't even need to look. I remembered every detail. But now it was real. Tangible. The truth on paper. I spent the next 2 weeks building strength. Preparing. I wrote a letter. Not just any letter. A confession, a confrontation, and a farewell. I poured every ounce of betrayal into it. Every sleepless night, every frozen breath I'd taken while listening to her cheat on me. I left it and signed. Just a printed page in a plain envelope. Then, one Friday evening, I had Tom drop it off at her new apartment. I knew she'd be home. She always was on Fridays. That's when he came over. Her new boyfriend. The man from the hospital. She called me the next morning. My first call from her in almost a year. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was frantic. "Ethan? I got this letter. Is this you? Are you alive? Please, call me. We need to talk." I didn't call. I wasn't ready. Not yet. She left 5 more messages. Then she stopped. But she wasn't done. 3 days later, she showed up at Tom's house. I was outside, walking in the garden. When she saw me, she froze, pale as a ghost. "Ethan," she whispered. My God. You're alive." I nodded. Said nothing. She walked toward me, slowly, like approaching a wild animal. "Why didn't you tell me?" Why the letter?" I stared at her. "You said I was basically dead," I replied. My voice was hoarse, still recovering, but steady. "Cold." Her eyes welled up. "Ethan, I didn't mean you brought him into my hospital room," I interrupted. "You kissed him. Right beside me. While I lay there, helpless." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I kept going. "You told him I couldn't hear you. That I was gone. But I heard everything, Hannah. Every word. Every laugh. Every lie." She broke. Fell to her knees, crying. "I didn't know, I was scared. I thought you'd never wake up, so you moved on." While I was still breathing. I stepped back. "You betrayed me in the worst way possible. You didn't just cheat. You erased me." She begged. Pleaded. Said it was a mistake. That she was lost. That it didn't mean anything. But I wasn't there for apologies. I was there for closure. "I don't hate you, Hannah," I said. "But I'll never forgive you. And I'll never forget." Then I turned and walked away. She stayed on the ground, sobbing. But the story didn't end there. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo. Her boyfriend. The man she'd brought to the hospital. He was with another woman. Kissing her. The caption on the back said, "You're not the only one he visits on Fridays." No signature. No explanation. Just a gift from fate. I smiled for the first time in months. I didn't contact her. Didn't tell her. Let her find out the way I found out about her. Unexpected. Crippling. Honest. Justice had a way of coming full circle. But life had more in store for me. After months of recovery, I started volunteering at the hospital. Talking to patients with similar conditions. Helping families understand what locked in really meant. That their loved ones might be listening. Might be feeling everything. It was healing. For them and for me. One day, while walking through the rehab wing, I heard a voice. "Ethan?" I turned. It was Kayla, the nurse who'd noticed my finger twitch. The first person who believed I was still there. She smiled wide. "You look amazing," she said. "I barely recognized you." We talked. 4 hours. About life. About recovery. About betrayal. She knew. The other nurses had told her bits and pieces. But hearing it from me was different. She didn't judge. She didn't pity. She listened. And something about the way she looked at me made the world feel less heavy. I started coming by more often. Bringing coffee. Helping with paperwork. Volunteering for patient transport. Slowly, the hospital became my second home. And Kayla? She became more than that. But I wasn't rushing. I had learned what rushing into love could cost. She was patient. Kind. And she understood pain. Real pain. Her father had died in a coma. One he never woke up from. She told me that's why she'd always paid attention to patients like me. Why she never assumed we were gone. 6 months after that day in the garden with Hannah, I got another call. From a lawyer. Apparently, Hannah was trying to access my life insurance policy. The one she thought she'd be entitled to after my death. But I wasn't dead. And I had already updated the beneficiary. To Tom. She was furious. Called me again. Screamed on voicemail. "You tricked me. You set me up. After everything we had?" I didn't respond. I blocked the number. Let her scream into silence the way I once screamed in my mind, unable to speak. Kayla and I kept things slow. We weren't teenagers chasing a spark, we were two wounded people learning to trust again. I told her everything, even the darkest thoughts I'd had while locked in that hospital bed. She never flinched. She held my hand and said, "You survived the worst. You deserve peace now." I believed her. For the first time, I truly did. But peace doesn't come easy when ghosts are still wandering. One evening, as I walked Kayla to her car after her shift, I saw Hannah across the street. Watching. She didn't approach. Just stared, as if trying to memorize my new life. I ignored her. But I knew it wouldn't stop there. And it didn't. She started sending letters. Pages of apology. Confession. Begging me to meet her. "Just one conversation," she wrote. "Please, Ethan. You owe me that." I owed her nothing. Still, I read every word. Not because I cared, but because I wanted to understand what broke her. What allowed her to do what she did. One line stood out: "He's not who I thought he was." Followed by, "You were always the better man." I didn't feel vindicated. I felt numb. Because by the time she realized what she had, it was already gone. Tom suggested I burn the letters. "She's fishing for sympathy," he said. "Don't give it to her." He was right. But I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. So I wrote her one final letter. A simple one. Just 3 lines. "I heard you. I felt everything. I lived it. We're done." I never heard from her again. Kayla and I took a trip a few weeks later. Nothing fancy, just a cabin near the mountains, somewhere quiet. The air was clean. The silence was healing. One night, by the fire, she looked at me and said, "I think you're the bravest man I've ever met." I didn't know what to say. I wasn't brave. I was just a man who refused to let betrayal define him. That night, I slept without nightmares for the first time since the coma. But just when I thought the past had finally died, it came knocking again. A detective showed up at my door. Tall, tired, with a badge clipped to his belt. "Mr. Walker," he said. "We'd like to ask you some questions about Hannah Morrison." I frowned. "What about her?" "She was reported missing 2 days ago. Her car was found abandoned. And your name came up, more than once." I felt my blood chill. I haven't spoken to her in months. She told several people she feared for her safety. That you'd threatened her. That was a lie. But a clever one. Because there was no proof. Just a trail of silence I'd carefully left behind. I invited the detective in. Showed him the letters she'd sent. My single reply. The blocked calls. The voicemail logs. He took notes. Asked questions. But in the end, he left with a polite nod. "We'll be in touch if anything else comes up." Kayla was shaken. "Do you think she's framing you?" I shrugged. Or maybe she disappeared on purpose. Maybe she needed attention. Maybe her boyfriend finally turned on her. The last theory seemed likely. But I wasn't sure. And that bothered me. Tom installed cameras around my house. Just in case. He believed in over-preparing. I let him. But deep down, I didn't think she'd come back. Not after that letter. A week passed. Then another. Still no sign of her. Then one night, I got a call. From a blocked number. I almost didn't answer. But I did. A man's voice came through. Calm. Cold. "You ruined her," he said. "Who is this?" "You know who I am. She told me everything. You think you're some kind of survivor, but you're just a bitter shell." Then he hung up. Kayla found me sitting in the dark, staring at the wall. I told her what happened. She stayed with me all night, just holding me. The next day, Tom showed me the footage. From the backyard. At 2:37 a.m., a man had walked up to the back fence. Stood there for 5 minutes. Then walked away. Face obscured. But posture familiar. It was him. I called the detective. Gave him the footage. The voicemail. Everything. He thanked me, but I could tell they didn't have much to go on. No body. No proof of foul play. Just another messy breakup turned darker. But I knew better. This wasn't about Hannah anymore. This was about ego. About revenge. The man she'd chosen over me couldn't handle being the one left behind. So I prepared. Not for war. Just for the possibility of it. One evening, while locking up, I found something on my porch. A box. No return label. Inside, a framed photo of me and Hannah. Cracked glass. And beneath it, a note, "You don't get to move on." I reported it. Again. But police can only do so much when no laws have been broken. So I leaned on the one thing I had left, my story. I went online. Wrote a post. Anonymously, at first. Describing what it felt like to be locked inside your own body. To hear your wife fall in love with another man while you lay there, helpless. The post went viral. Thousands of comments. Messages. Support. And among them, a few strange ones. "You're not the only one she lied to. She did the same to my brother. She's toxic. He's worse." The patterns emerged. Hannah had a history. So did he. Manipulation. Financial abuse. Control. I realized I wasn't a one-time victim. I was part of a long chain. I shared my story in full. With names. Details. Dates. The fallout was instant. Local reporters picked it up. Online blogs ran it. A podcast even reached out. People began coming forward. Women who knew him. Families who'd been shattered by the same pattern. And suddenly, I wasn't just a story, I was a warning. Then came the big break. A woman named Claire messaged me. She'd dated him years ago. Said he had a violent streak. That he knew how to hide it. She gave me everything: old texts, photos, even a police report that had been lost in the system. I handed it all to the detective. And just like that, the tide turned. The detective called me a few days later. "We've reopened the case," he said. "Your ex-wife's disappearance is officially suspicious. And we're bringing someone in for questioning." I didn't ask who. I already knew. The man who'd taken everything from me was finally on their radar. But I also knew he wouldn't go down without a fight. That same evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 4 words: "You started this war." I showed it to Tom. He didn't say anything, just walked over to the gun safe he'd installed for me months ago. "If he shows up again," Tom said, "there's no talking. You protect yourself." But he never showed. Instead, the storm unfolded in headlines. Missing woman's husband under investigation. Local man accused by multiple women. Past abuse allegations resurface. The man Hannah had chosen over me was now under a microscope, his clean image cracking. Claire agreed to testify. 2 more women joined her. The police found inconsistencies in his alibi. GPS data, phone records, they didn't match his statements. The detective told me, "We don't have a body, but we have a motive, a pattern, and now, witnesses." Still, without Hannah, there was no closure. Until the call came. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was sitting on the porch, watching the wind rustle through the trees, when my phone rang. "Mr. Walker? This is Detective Hanley. We've found her. Alive. Not dead. Not buried. Alive. She'd been hiding in another state, using a different name, staying with a distant cousin. Said she was scared. Said she didn't trust anyone. Not even the man she ran away with. He'd turned aggressive, paranoid. Controlling. She tried to leave, he threatened her. So she waited. Saved cash. Disappeared without a trace. But after seeing the headlines, she came forward. I didn't know who to trust, she told the police. But when I saw Ethan's story, I realized he was the only one who never tried to break me. The irony didn't escape me. I was summoned to the station. Not to speak to her, but to confirm a few details. The officer handed me a statement she'd written. Pages of confession. Guilt. Shame. But the line that hit hardest was this: he heard everything. And I betrayed the one man who would have never left me. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just exhaled. The trial wasn't dramatic. With her testimony and the other women's accounts, he didn't stand a chance. He was charged with multiple counts: assault, coercion, unlawful confinement, and obstruction. He took a plea deal. 10 years. No chance of early parole. For someone like him, that was a lifetime. Hannah didn't return to our town. She moved out of state permanently. Sent me one final letter, handwritten this time. Ethan, I don't deserve forgiveness. I know that. But I want to thank you. Not just for telling the truth, but for surviving it. You gave me a second chance at life, even after I stole yours. I'll carry that guilt forever. I hope you found peace. I hope you found love. I read it once. Then I tucked it into the back of a drawer and never looked at it again. Kayla and I stayed strong through it all. She never doubted me. Not once. And when I told her the whole story, the coma, the voices, the pain, she held me tighter. You don't need to explain anything, she said. You lived through hell. I just want to make sure you never go back. We got married in a small ceremony in the woods, just us and a few close friends. Tom was my best man. When he gave this speech, he said, some men are defined by what they've lost. But Ethan, he's defined by what he refused to let go of, his dignity. There were tears. Laughter. And for the first time in years, a sense of wholeness. I sold the old house. Too many memories. Too many ghosts. We moved to a quiet place outside the city, near a lake. I built furniture with my hands, something I'd always wanted to try. Kayla painted. We took long walks. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, I'd sit outside and listen to the world. No machines. No monitors. No voices whispering betrayal. Just life. One morning, I received an email from a journalist. He'd followed my story, seen the podcast, read the articles. He wanted to write a book. Not just about what happened to you, he said, but about how you rebuilt. How you forgave. How you came back from the grave. I declined. My story didn't belong on shelves. It belonged in my bones, in my scars, in the quiet love I now shared with someone who truly saw me. But I did send him a final thought. One he could publish, if he wanted. I was paralyzed, voiceless, betrayed. But I didn't die. And that's all the justice I need. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never woken up. If I'd died in that hospital bed, never hearing the betrayal, never feeling the burn of silence, of secrets. Maybe they would have painted me as a tragic figure. The loving husband who never knew. Maybe they would have cried real tears at my funeral. Or maybe they would have stood beside each other, pretending none of it mattered, rewriting the truth. But I did wake up. I heard. I felt. I remembered. And that truth, it carved itself into me. It's strange, living with that kind of knowledge. Most people never get to hear what others say when they think you're gone. It's like stepping out of your own grave and seeing the world for what it really is. Unfiltered. Unapologetic. Sometimes it breaks you. Sometimes it sets you free. For me, it did both. I still dream about those days in the hospital. The beeping. The breathing. The way their voices would drift in like smoke. I don't remember everything, but I remember enough. Enough to know who I was. And who I am now. Kayla never asks about the past anymore. She knows it's always with me, even when I don't speak of it. She'll catch me staring into the distance sometimes, and instead of pushing, she just reaches over and holds my hand. That kind of understanding, it's rare. It's earned. I've learned not to hate Hannah. Hate is heavy. It rots you from the inside. She made her choices, and she paid for them. Not in court, maybe. But in her soul. You could hear it in her voice, read it in her letter. That kind of regret doesn't go away. It stains. As for him, the man who whispered promises into my wife's ear while I lay dying, I've let go of him too. 10 years in a cell is more than enough. But truthfully, he was never the real villain. Weak men don't tempt strong women. They just expose what was already broken. I visit my parents' grave every spring now. Lay fresh flowers. Sit for a while. Tell them everything's okay. That their son made it. That the man they raised didn't disappear in that hospital room. He fought. He healed. He found his way back. Sometimes I wonder what they'd think of Kayla. I think they'd love her. She's gentle in a way Hannah never was. Not weak, just kind. The kind of woman who sees pain and doesn't flinch. Who listens when silence is loudest. We never had kids. Maybe someday. Or maybe not. I think I've lived enough lives for one lifetime. The podcast episode that told my story went viral for a while. People called me brave. Inspirational. Some called me a liar. Said I was hallucinating, imagining the whole thing. Doesn't matter. I know what I heard. I know what I lived. I don't need strangers to validate my scars. One message stood out though. It came from a man in another country. His wife had cheated while he was in a coma too. Your story gave me peace, he wrote. I thought I was going crazy. But now I know I'm not alone. That, more than anything, made it worth it. To speak. To tell the truth. To be heard. Life now is simple. By choice. I wake up early. Make coffee. Sit by the window while Kayla sleeps a little longer. Sometimes I write. Sometimes I just watch the light move across the floor. No drama. No noise. No masks. Just peace. I still keep the journal Tom gave me. The one from when I first came home. The first page just says, write down everything you remember. Not for them. For you. And I did. Every lie. Every whisper. Every breath I took when they thought I couldn't. The last page is blank. I think I'll leave it that way. Because the story's over now. And I survived it.